The sun rose slowly over Dixon, Kentucky, spreading a faint orange glow over the sleepy town, but inside the Slayton household, the morning felt anything but calm. Before the rooster crowed, before the children stirred, before a single car rolled past the neighborhood, an invisible storm had already planted itself right at the heart of the family. It wasn't thunder, or lightning, or rain that threatened to shake their world. This storm wore the name Andrea Galfrond. Chris Slayton had been up earlier than usual, rubbing the last bit of sleep from his eyes as he scrolled through messages on his phone. He expected the usual, memes, updates from friends, maybe a grocery coupon. But then he saw something that made his face stiffen. A message from an old buddy who lived 2 towns over. The tone was urgent, and attached to the message were files, screenshots, old police documents, and gossip threads that carried Andrea's name like a stain. Chris's breath caught. For a moment he just stared, unable to blink. Then he whispered to himself, "Holy crap, I gotta show this to Tammy." He paced around the kitchen, gripping the printed papers like they were made of fire. Andrea Galfrond, the woman Tammy loved, the woman she believed she would marry, the woman who had somehow slipped past everyone's instincts, had secrets. Big ones. And every single one was now staring back at Chris in black and white. Andrea had always presented herself like a polished picture, gentle, polite, soft-spoken, the kind of calm energy Tammy craved after a lifetime of chaos. Tammy once said Andrea made her feel safe, like she could exhale for the first time in years. But now, cracks were showing. Behind Andrea's warm smiles and sweet words lived a history she had carefully kept hidden. Rumors of a criminal record, petty theft, fraud, disturbing domestic drama, allegations of betrayal in past relationships. Stories from her hometown that painted her as a person Tammy never knew she had been involved with. For hours, Andrea had stood beside Tammy whispering promises of lifelong devotion. Now those promises looked hollow, heavy, and painfully dishonest. Down the hallway, Amanda emerged from her room rubbing her neck, instantly noticing Chris's expression. "What's wrong with you? You look like you saw a ghost." Chris handed her the stack. Amanda skimmed the first page and gasped. "Oh no, Tammy's gonna lose it." "We gotta tell her," Chris said. "We gotta do it now." The two of them walked to Tammy's room, bracing themselves for the hurricane they were about to unleash. Inside, Tammy sat in her recliner happily snacking on grapes, humming as she scrolled through wedding cake designs. White roses, baby's breath, little touches of sparkle. Her eyes twinkled with excitement. She didn't notice her siblings' stiff faces until they approached her. "What now?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. Her tone dripped with her usual sass, completely unaware her world was seconds away from breaking. Chris swallowed hard. "Tammy, you need to see this." He handed her the papers. Tammy took them casually at first, as if expecting something silly or minor. But her expression changed the moment she saw Andrea's name. She flipped through the pages quickly, then slowly, then stopped at the police reports. Her breath hitched. Her fingers stiffened. Her eyes widened, anger, disbelief, betrayal flashing faster than lightning. "You mean to tell me," Tammy whispered, voice trembling, "that this whole time Andrea was hiding this from me?" Amanda lowered her head. "We didn't want to hurt you, but you deserve the truth. Before you marry somebody who ain't who they pretend to be." Tammy's jaw clenched. The paper slid from her hand and scattered across the bed like broken promises. Then she inhaled deeply, straightened her back, and stared ahead with a cold, clear determination. "Well," she said firmly, "I'm not agreeing to marry Andrea. Nope. I ain't marrying someone who lies to me. I deserve better than that." The room fell silent. For years, Tammy battled insecurities that convinced her she should settle for whoever showed her attention. But this moment shattered that cycle. She had grown. She was choosing herself. Amanda rushed forward and hugged her tightly. "That's right. You do deserve better." Word spread fast, faster than any family gossip ever had. Within minutes, the entire Slayton household buzzed with the same emotion, relief. Amy was the first to enter Tammy's room again, holding baby Glenn on her hip. Her face looked conflicted, sad for Tammy, but undeniably relieved. She stood by the door for a second, deciding whether to speak. When Tammy finally met her eyes, Amy walked forward. "You okay, sis?" Tammy wiped her tears but nodded. "Yeah. I'm done with Andrea." Amy exhaled with obvious relief. "Good. 'Cause honestly, I didn't want you to marry Andrea either. Something always felt off about her. I tried to ignore it, but it never sat right with me." Tammy blinked, surprised. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Amy shrugged softly. "Because I didn't want to get between you and your happiness. I wanted you to see it for yourself." Tammy's expression softened. She felt betrayed by Andrea, but supported by her family. Later that day, Chris clapped his hands loudly announcing, "Well, disaster avoided. Let's celebrate." Amanda rolled in with cupcakes left over from a school event. "We saved these for wedding planning night, but this is better." Everyone gathered around Tammy, laughing, hugging, filling the room with warmth. Pain sat in Tammy's heart, yes, but strength was growing beside it. That night, Tammy wheeled herself onto the porch. The air smelled like fresh grass and early summer. Crickets chirped in the bushes. She tilted her head back and whispered to the stars, "I'm not going backward. I'm moving forward, with or without a partner." For the first time in a long time, Tammy felt free. The next morning carried a quiet stillness across Dixon, the type of silence that appears after a storm. Tammy awoke earlier than usual, her mind still processing everything she had learned about Andrea. She lay in bed for a moment, staring at the ceiling, her emotions shifting between relief, anger, and sadness. But beneath all of that lived something she hadn't felt often: clarity. Meanwhile, in Amy's newly redecorated living room, sunbeams slipped through cartoon-patterned curtains and danced across the toys scattered over the rug. Colorful blocks, stuffed animals, cars, and crayons made the room feel alive, like chaos had taken up residency and decided never to leave. Amy stretched, her bones popping lightly as she stood up. "Another day," she whispered to herself. "Another adventure." Gage raced down the hallway, wearing a superhero cape made from a bedsheet, screaming, "I'm Super Gage," while Glenn babbled from his playpen, waving his fists like he was cheering for his brother's imaginary battle against invisible villains. Amy smiled. Life was messy, loud, sometimes unbearably stressful, but it was hers. And for a moment, she basked in the comfort of that truth. Outside on the porch, Tammy sat quietly in her wheelchair, tapping her fingers along the armrest. Her mind wasn't on Andrea anymore. Not exactly. Today was the day she had promised to try driving again, a commitment she had made weeks ago, but always found a reason to delay. Too tired, too nervous, too embarrassed. But not today. Amy stepped outside holding 2 bottles of cold water, offering one to her sister. "Tam," she said gently, "you ready?" Tammy swallowed hard. Her shoulders tensed, her heart thumped heavily, and she stared straight ahead like the parking lot was a battlefield. "I don't know," Tammy murmured. "Every time I think about driving, I feel like I'm gonna lose control. What if I crash? What if I ruin everything? What if I mess up?" Amy crouched down so she could look Tammy straight in the eyes. "Sis, listen. You've already survived more hard stuff than most people ever will. Losing control? Falling? Messing up? You've done all that before, over and over, and you're still here. You're stronger than your fear. And I'll be right beside you the whole time." Tammy closed her eyes, took a long breath, and nodded. "Okay, slow. Slow is good." Together, they headed toward the empty parking lot behind the community center. The morning air carried a gentle breeze, cool enough to calm nerves, but warm enough to soothe the spirit. A few joggers passed by, waving as they recognized the sisters. Tammy climbed into the driver's seat with effort, adjusting the seatbelt carefully. Her hands trembled as she touched the steering wheel, something so simple yet terrifying after years of being unable to control a car, her life, or even her own breath under the weight of her past. Amy clicked her own seatbelt and flashed a reassuring smile. You got this. Remember, the car listens to you, not the other way around. Tammy exhaled. Her chest rose and fell slowly, deliberately. Okay, here goes nothing. She pressed the gas pedal gently. The car moved forward, only inches at first, then slowly more. Tammy's eyes widened with surprise, but she didn't panic. She held on to control, just like Amy said. They made a small loop around the lot. Then another. Amy set up simple cones near the sidewalk, and Tammy maneuvered the car around them with careful precision. After a few minutes, Tammy's serious, fearful expression cracked into a smile. Then laughter. Then joy. I did it. I freaking did it, she shouted. Amy clapped. I told you. You're basically a NASCAR driver now. Tammy snorted. Yeah, a very slow NASCAR driver. But pride radiated from her, pure, powerful, overdue pride. She hadn't felt this type of accomplishment in years. By evening, their spirits were still high as the Slayton family gathered for dinner at Amy's house. The aroma of roasted chicken, mashed potatoes smothered in butter, and cornbread filled every corner of the home. The kids ran in circles, their laughter bouncing off the walls. Chris was the first to arrive, barging through the door holding 2 pies proudly over his head. All right, he announced. I brought dessert. One is sugar-free, especially for Tammy since she's making big changes. Tammy squinted at him. Sugar-free better, not mean flavor-free, Chris. I swear if it tastes like cardboard again. Chris put a hand over his heart. I would never poison you like that again. Probably. Amanda walked in next with a giant salad bowl held dramatically above her head. We're eating healthy tonight. No excuses. Oh, great, Chris groaned. Rabbit food. The table filled quickly. Plates passed from hand to hand. Conversations overlapped. Laughter bubbled everywhere. Tammy found herself smiling more tonight than she had in weeks. Midway through dinner, Gage accidentally knocked over a bowl of gravy. The brown liquid cascaded across the table, splashing onto Chris's jeans. Chris jumped up like the chair had caught fire. Gage! Boy, what have you done? Amy rushed forward. I'm so sorry. I told him to slow down. But Tammy burst out laughing, loud, wild, unstoppable laughter. Dang, Chris, she wheezed. The gravy chose you. The entire family started laughing. Even Chris eventually cracked a smile before chasing Gage around the living room, yelling, Come here, you little gravy monster. I'm gonna turn you into mashed potatoes. By the time everyone settled, their stomachs were full, their clothes a little stained, and their hearts warm. That night, Tammy lay awake in her bed, staring at the ceiling again. But tonight felt different than the night before. She had driven a car for the first time in years, had a joyful, messy, beautiful dinner with her family, laughed deeply, genuinely for the first time in weeks. She whispered into the dim silence, I'm changing. Maybe slowly, but I'm changing. In another room, Amy tucked her kids in for the night, smoothing blankets over their tiny bodies as they drifted to sleep. She paused at the doorway, looking at them with a mix of exhaustion and gratitude. Her life wasn't perfect. Her family wasn't perfect. But they were strong, united, loud, loving, chaotic in the best ways. And tomorrow? Who knew what new adventure waited? Because in the Slayton family, life never slowed down. And it never stopped surprising them. The scene shifted again, this time to a quieter corner of the Slayton household, Amy's room, where the walls were covered with years of memories. Photos of Gage as a baby, photos of Glenn smiling wide, drooling onto his shirt, photos of Tammy when she was in rehab, holding her walker, but still giving a proud thumbs up. Photos of Amy and Michael on their wedding day, when the world seemed kinder, and the future felt simple, light, and full of love. Amy stood in the center of the room now, her eyes lingering on a picture frame she hadn't touched in months. It was dusty, the glass smudged by time and neglect, but the moment inside was still bright. Her wedding day, not the chaos, not the stress, not the arguments, but a single captured second where they both smiled at each other like nothing in the world could break them. But time did break them. Fame broke them. Pressure broke them. Love, strained, buried, and forgotten, broke them. She let out a long breath, one that shook at the end. "How did we get here?" she whispered to herself. Behind her, the bedroom door cracked open and Tammy peeked in. She didn't say anything at first, she knew better. When Amy was holding old memories in her hands, her heart was softer, her pain sharper. Tammy stepped inside slowly. "Ames, you okay?" "No," Amy said honestly, because she no longer had the emotional energy to pretend. Tammy nodded and sat on the edge of the bed, her presence solid and grounding. "I know today was rough." Chris yelling, Michael showing up like he got something to say, all of it. "He's trying to take my babies, Tam," Amy whispered, finally letting the fear settle into words. "He really wants 'em." Tammy's jaw clenched. "He ain't gon' get 'em. Not over my dead body. Not with all the hell he put you through. He can try, but he ain't talking them boys." That was what Amy loved most about Tammy. Underneath the chaos, the attitude, the drama, and the TV cameras, Tammy was fiercely loyal. A bulldog with no leash. If you were hers, she'd protect you like a fortress. Amy sat beside her sister, leaning her head onto Tammy's shoulder. "I'm just tired, Tam. I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of court hearings. I'm tired of his mama acting like I'm a bad mom. I'm tired of everything." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The room was filled only with the soft hum of the fan and the distant sound of Glenn laughing from the living room. "You remember when we was kids," Tammy finally said, "and Mom used to leave us alone for hours? And we used to sit in that old hallway, scared as hell someone was gonna break in or something. But you always held my hand and told me it was gonna be okay." Amy blinked back tears. "Yeah, well." Tammy squeezed her hand. "Now it's my turn." Amy didn't cry often, not anymore, but at that, a single tear slipped out and fell onto the picture frame. "I don't want the boys to grow up thinking their dad didn't love them," she whispered. Tammy sighed. "Listen, Michael love is yeah. But love ain't enough if you ain't showing up. He wasn't there, Amy. You was. Every night. Every morning. Every doctor visit. Every tantrum. Every fever. Every time Gage got scared 'cause of the dark. You were the one holding him, rocking him, telling him it was okay." Amy nodded slowly. "I know. You're their mama," Tammy said firmly. "You're the one who stayed." Outside the door, Chris walked by, overhearing just enough to realize the tone of the room had changed. He poked his head inside. "Y'all good?" he asked. "Yeah," Amy said softly. "Better." Chris nodded and stepped in fully, leaning against the doorframe. "Look, I know I came on strong earlier. I don't like seeing him waltz in here like he ain't done nothing wrong." "You didn't come on too strong," Amy told him. "I needed you today." Chris softened, his tough guy facade cracking at the edges. "Well, you always got me. You know that." The three of them sat together for a moment, an unspoken understanding passing through the room. This family had been through hell and back. Fame, loss, weight struggles, health scares, breakups, reunions, rehab, love, and heartbreak. But through every damn thing, they still had each other. The Slayton bond wasn't perfect, but it was real. And that mattered. Then, from the living room, came a crash, followed by Glenn's unmistakable giggle. Amy's eyes widened. "Oh Lord, what did he break now?" Chris chuckled. "Sounds like something expensive." Tammy pushed herself up with a groan. "Probably your good candle," she teased. "Kids always go after the good stuff." Amy hurried out of the bedroom and found Glenn sitting in the middle of a pile of spilled cereal, the box upside down over his head like a hat. Gage was standing beside him, holding a wooden spoon, looking like he was about to start a marching band. Amy couldn't help it, she laughed. Full belly, full heart, full relief. This right here. This was why she fought so hard. Her boys. Her joy. Her reason. She picked Glenn up, cereal crumbs falling everywhere, and kissed his cheek. "Mama's here," she whispered. Mama's not going anywhere. Tammy leaned against the doorway, watching the scene unfold with a proud smile. Now that's the Amy I know. Amy smiled back, her eyes shining, not with sadness this time, but with a quiet, rebuilding strength. And somewhere outside, in a driveway shadowed by evening, Michael sat in his car staring at the house, wondering, not for the first time, if he had already lost the battle before it even began. But inside the house, Amy held her children like a promise. And she wasn't letting go. Evening settled over Dixon like a heavy blanket, warm in some places, suffocating in others. The sky had shifted to that deep, hazy blue, almost purple, where the sun had dipped but the night hadn't fully claimed the world yet. The street outside the Slayton home was so quiet that even the sound of gravel crunching under a car tire felt loud. Michael's car. He had been sitting there for nearly 20 minutes, engine off, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles looked white. The windows were rolled down just enough to let in the cool breeze, but not enough that anyone inside could hear the shaky breaths he was taking. He wasn't angry.
Not now.
Now, he was something else. Something like regret. Something like fear. Something like a man who was slowly realizing he had reached the point of no return. Inside the house, he could hear faint echoes. Tammy laughing loudly, Amy telling the boys to stop throwing cereal, Chris shouting something about, "Whoever broke the lamp owes me $10. It was chaos in all the ways he used to complain about, but in the kind of way that used to secretly make him smile. It used to be home. But he wasn't part of that anymore. Not really. Michael rested his forehead against the steering wheel, exhaling a breath he didn't even know he'd been holding. "What am I doing?" he muttered to himself. He hadn't come to start a fight that afternoon. He hadn't planned to walk into Amy's house and end up face to face with the entire Slayton clan ready to jump down his throat. All he wanted, what he thought he wanted, was clarity. But clarity was the one thing he didn't have. Not about the kids. Not about Amy. Not about the divorce. Not about himself. A soft knock on his car window jolted him out of his thoughts. He looked up and froze. It was Misty. Her arms were crossed, her stance sturdy, her hair pulled back like she'd come prepared to handle business, not emotions. Michael sighed and rolled down the window a bit more. "You follow me out here?" "No," Misty said. "I saw you sitting here through the blinds. Figured if you sat here any longer the neighbors were going to think you lost your mind." Michael gave a humorless laugh. "Maybe I have." Misty raised an eyebrow. "Mind if I sit?" He hesitated but nodded. She opened the passenger door and slid in, closing it gently. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They just sat there, two people who had known each other for years but rarely had real conversations, breathing in the same heavy air. Finally, Misty sighed. "Michael, what are you doing?" "Really?" He rubbed his eyes. "I don't know." "You can't keep showing up unannounced," Misty said, not unkindly. "You stress Amy out. And when Amy's stressed, everyone's stressed. The boys feel it. Tammy feels it. The whole damn house feels it." "I'm their dad," Michael whispered, his voice cracking for the first time. "I miss them. I miss my boys." That softened Misty more than she expected. "I know," she said. "Ain't nobody saying you don't love them. But loving them and showing up the right way are two different things." Michael swallowed hard. Misty turned slightly in her seat, studying him like she was trying to decode a puzzle nobody else could solve. "You don't want to go to court, do you?" His laugh was bitter. "Hell no. Court scares the crap out of me." "Then, what do you want?" Silence. Trees swayed gently in the wind. A dog barked somewhere down the block. The world kept moving while Michael stayed still. He paused, struggling for words. "I want to be their dad. But I don't want to fight Amy anymore." Misty nodded slowly. "Then stop fighting. It's not that simple." "Yes, it is," she said firmly. "You make it complicated 'cause you're scared to say what you really mean." Michael looked up, confused. "And what's that?" Misty didn't sugarcoat it. "That wasn't the Slayton way. You still love her." Michael's breath hitched. He didn't deny it. He didn't have to. Misty continued, her voice lowering. You think we don't know? You think Amy don't know? Every time you come around, you look at her like you're watching the life you walked away from. That's not fair, Michael murmured. It's the truth, Misty said. And you know it. Michael ran a hand through his hair. It's too late. She hates me. She don't hate you, Misty said. She's hurt. That's different. He shook his head. I ruined everything, Misty. All she ever wanted was a family. And I gave up. I walked away. And now, I want to fix it, he whispered. Misty exhaled a long, heavy breath. Michael, you can't fix something if you're still breaking it with the same hands. Michael stared through the windshield at the house glowing softly in the dusk. Inside, he could see shadows moving, Tammy carrying Glenn, Chris tossing a toy to Gage, Amy wiping down the counter while humming softly the way she always did when she was trying to calm her nerves. His family. The family he wasn't part of anymore. Maybe I should go, he finally said. Misty nodded.
Yeah, for now.
And tomorrow? Misty gave him a small, tired smile. Tomorrow you try again. But different. Smarter.
Softer.
With less yelling and less showing up like a tornado. Michael huffed a small laugh despite himself. He turned the key in the ignition, and the engine rumbled to life. Misty opened the door to get out, but paused. And Michael? Yeah. When you're ready to be a real dad, not just a scared one will help you. All of us. Even Tammy. He blinked. Tammy? Misty smirked. She'll yell the whole time, but yeah. With that, she closed the door and walked back toward the house. Michael watched her go, her silhouette illuminated by the porch light. Then he backed out of the driveway, driving slowly down the quiet street, the weight of everything finally settling on his shoulders. Inside the house, Amy stood at the window, holding Glenn on her hip, watching his taillights fade into the dark. She didn't know why her heart tightened. She didn't know why a part of her still wished things had been different. All she knew was that tomorrow wasn't promised. And the fight for her children, her peace, her future was far from over. The laughter from the porch still lingered softly in Tammy's ears as the evening deepened into a calm, amber-colored silence. Fireflies blinked like tiny stars scattered across the yard, and the chirping of crickets filled the warm Kentucky night. The Slayton house, usually loud enough to shake the windows, was unusually still, almost as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Inside, Amy was cleaning up the kitchen after tucking Gage and Glenn into bed. The boys had finally fallen asleep after a full day of running circles around the house, giggling until they collapsed on their pillows. The quiet was rare, golden, fragile. Amy leaned against the counter for a moment, letting her body relax. But the calm didn't last. A sudden knock rattled the front door, loud, impatient, sharp. Amy's eyes snapped open. Visitors didn't come this late. She moved forward cautiously. Tammy, she called. Tammy rolled in from the hallway, eyebrows raised. You expecting someone?
No, Amy whispered.
They opened the door. Standing under the porch light was Andrea. Her face was pale, streaked with tears, her hair messy, like she had been running. Her chest heaved with heavy breaths, and in her shaking hands she held a crumpled piece of paper. One Tammy recognized instantly. The printouts, the criminal records, the lies, the things that had ended everything. Amy, Tammy, I need to talk. Andrea's voice cracked like a breaking branch. Tammy froze, gripping the wheels of her chair until her knuckles whitened. Why are you here? I told you I was done. Andrea took a shaky step forward, but Amy blocked her with a protective arm. Not inside, Amy said firmly. Say what you gotta say right here. Andrea swallowed hard. Her voice trembled. I didn't come to change your mind, Tammy. I know I messed up. I know hiding my past was wrong. But I need you to hear me. Tammy scoffed. Hear what? Another excuse?
No, Andrea whispered.
The truth I should have told you from the start. The porch light flickered as if reacting to the tension. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. The night felt heavy. Andrea lowered the paper in her hand. That record, the one about the arrest, it wasn't what people think. I wasn't the criminal. I was the one who reported it. My ex, he hurt someone and I got tangled in it. And the relationship rumors? She swallowed again. I didn't cheat. I was the one cheated on. Tammy's jaw clenched. Amy crossed her arms. Then why hide it? Why not just tell Tammy up front? Because I was ashamed, Andrea admitted, voice cracking. I finally felt happy for the first time in years, and I didn't want my past ruining it. I thought if I stayed quiet, everything would be fine. Tammy's eyes shimmered, not with softness, but with hurt. You should have trusted me, she whispered, her voice trembling. You of all people know what it feels like having the world judge you. And yet you let me walk into a marriage blind. Andrea wiped her cheeks with the heel of her hand. I know, and I'll regret it forever. Silence fell like a curtain. Behind her, Amy watched carefully. Tammy was strong, stronger than she'd ever been, but this moment was sharp enough to cut anyone. Andrea took a step back. I'm leaving town tomorrow. I just wanted to say,
I'm sorry.
and I hope someday you find someone who treats you the way you deserve. She turned away, walking down the steps slowly, as if each step weighed 100 pounds. The streetlight cast her shadow long and thin across the road until she disappeared into the darkness. For a long moment, Tammy said nothing. Amy knelt beside her, touching her shoulder gently. You okay? Tammy kept staring into the empty night. Her eyes were glossed with unshed tears, but her voice came out steady. I'm okay, she whispered, because now I know I made the right choice. A single tear escaped down her cheek. But it still hurts, Tammy admitted, her voice breaking for the first time. Amy wrapped an arm around her. You're allowed to hurt, sis. Healing ain't always pretty. Tammy leaned against her, letting the weight of everything settle.
The past.
The betrayal. The almost marriage. The what-ifs. For the first time that night, Tammy exhaled fully, deeply, letting the pain leave her body little by little. I'm not going backward, she whispered again. Not for anyone. Amy kissed the top of her head. And you won't. Not while we're here. The porch light hummed softly above them. The crickets resumed their song. Somewhere inside, Glenn murmured in his sleep. And in that quiet, flickering moment, surrounded by shadows and love, the sisters strengthened a bond that had weathered storms, secrets, heartbreak, and rebirth. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new drama, new battles. But tonight, Tammy knew who she was, a woman who chose herself, a woman who walked away from lies, a woman finally stepping into her own future. Tammy barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, Andrea's face appeared in the darkness, tear-streaked, apologetic, full of regret. Tammy didn't miss Andrea. But she missed the idea of what she thought Andrea was. Someone honest. Someone safe. Someone who finally loved her without judgment. Morning light spilled into her bedroom, soft and golden, warming the blankets around her. She opened her eyes slowly, feeling the heaviness in her chest. Not sadness. Not heartbreak. Just exhaustion. A new kind of emotional tiredness that comes when a person realizes they dodged something dangerous. When she rolled into the living room, Amy was already up, hair in a messy bun, sipping a mug of very necessary coffee. Gage and Glenn were on the floor watching cartoons, giggling at something only toddlers understood. Amy looked up. Morning, Tam. Tammy nodded. Morning. Amy didn't push. She didn't ask how Tammy slept. Didn't ask if she was okay. She just handed her a warm plate of scrambled eggs and turkey bacon. Eat, Amy said softly. You need strength today. Tammy took the plate, grateful for the silence and the understanding. The sisters had fought, screamed, cried, and driven each other insane for years, but moments like this reminded Tammy why family mattered. Halfway through breakfast, Tammy's phone buzzed. She ignored it. It buzzed again. Then again. Amy looked over. You gonna check that? Probably spam, Tammy muttered, shoving another bite into her mouth. But when it buzzed a fourth time, she sighed and reached for it. Unknown caller. Her stomach tightened. She answered anyway. Hello. A shaky voice replied. Tammy? It's Caleb's sister.
Tara.
Tammy's breath caught. Tara never called her unless it was serious, deeply serious.
Tara?
What's wrong? Amy turned instantly, alert, watching Tammy's face pale. There was silence on the line, too long, too cold. Finally, Tara spoke. Tammy, it's Caleb. He collapsed this morning at the facility. They're trying to stabilize him, but he's not responsive. The world around Tammy went silent. The room seemed to tilt, her heartbeat slowing, her breath caught somewhere in her throat. No, he was fine last week, Tammy whispered. He told me he was feeling better. He told me, her voice cracked. Amy was beside her in an instant, gripping her arm. Tara continued, her own voice trembling. They're transporting him to the hospital. The doctors said you should come if you can. Just in case. Just in case. The words felt like knives. Tammy felt dizzy, pressing her fist against her chest.
No. Tara, no.
No, please tell me it's not that serious. Tara's silence told her everything. Amy knelt in front of her sister, placing both hands on her knees.
Tam, breathe.
Just breathe. But Tammy couldn't. Her lungs felt too small, too tight.
Caleb.
Her husband. Her friend. Her first real partner. The person who loved her when she was at her worst. She didn't want him back, not romantically. That chapter had closed. But Caleb had been a part of her soul, someone who understood the war she fought inside her own body every day. And now he was slipping away. Amy, I need to go. I need. Tammy's voice trembled. Amy nodded instantly. We're going.
Right now.
She ran to grab the diaper bag, her keys, her purse. Glenn began babbling as if sensing the chaos. Gage stared with wide eyes. Within minutes, the house shifted from calm morning routine to controlled emergency. Chris arrived just as Amy was loading the kids into the car. He took one look at Tammy's tear-stained cheeks and didn't ask a single question. Let's go, he said simply. You ride with me. Tammy nodded, wiping her face with trembling hands. They drove. The road to the hospital felt endless, long, dark, stretching into a future Tammy wasn't prepared to meet. Every bump, every red light made her chest ache. Chris kept glancing over, voice low and steady. He's strong, Tam.
He's pulled through a lot.
Tammy didn't answer. Her mind was spinning. She remembered Caleb laughing in the facility courtyard. She remembered holding his hand during therapy. She remembered the wedding vows they whispered, promising to fight for each other. Despite everything that happened between them, despite the divorce, despite moving on, a part of Tammy had always hoped Caleb would survive long enough to find his own happiness. When they reached the hospital, Tara was already in the waiting room, red-eyed, exhausted. The moment she saw Tammy, she rushed toward her. They're still working on him, Tara whispered. He keeps slipping in and out. Tammy covered her mouth with her hands as tears escaped uncontrollably. I need to see him, she whispered. Tara hesitated, then nodded. They said you can go in. Tammy rolled toward the hallway, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing on her shoulders. The fluorescent lights hurt her eyes. The nurses moved fast, their expressions tight. A doctor stepped forward. Mrs. Willingham? Tammy froze at the name. She wasn't legally his wife anymore. But she didn't correct him. Yes, she whispered. The doctor's face softened in a way that made her heart drop to her stomach. Please prepare yourself. He's in critical condition. Critical. The word echoed through her bones. She moved forward, hands shaking uncontrollably, and pushed open the door to Caleb's room. The machines beeped softly. The air smelled like antiseptic and fear. And there, lying pale and fragile in the bed, was Caleb. Her Caleb. Her heart shattered. Caleb, she whispered, voice cracking into pieces. His eyes fluttered open barely. When he saw her, a faint smile tugged at his lips. Tammy, you came? She broke.
Completely.
Tears streamed down her cheeks as she reached for his hand. I'm here, she whispered. I'm right here. He squeezed her hand weakly. So beautiful, he whispered. You look so alive. Tammy choked back a sob. Don't talk like that. You're gonna be okay. You hear me? You're gonna. But her voice wouldn't finish. Caleb closed his eyes briefly, taking a slow, shallow breath. Thank you for loving me when I didn't love myself, he whispered. Tammy shook her head violently.
No.
Don't say goodbye. Please don't. His eyes opened one last time, soft, warm, filled with something almost peaceful. I'm proud of you.
Tammy.
You became everything we dreamed of. Then his chest rose. Stopped. The monitors began screaming. And Tammy screamed with them. Caleb.
No.
No, please, no. The nurses rushed in. Amy burst into the room, grabbing Tammy before she collapsed. The world blurred. Everything spun. And in the chaos of alarms and shouting and heartbreak, Tammy realized she had just lost someone she wasn't ready to lose. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and despair. Tammy clutched Caleb's cold hand, refusing to let go, as the alarms blared like a relentless storm. Her tears mixed with fear and helplessness. She had never felt so powerless. Amy held her, whispering over and over, Tam, breathe. You can't do this alone.
Breathe.
But Tammy's breaths came in short, jagged bursts. She couldn't imagine a world without him. The doctors and nurses worked swiftly, adjusting monitors, administering medications, shouting instructions. The chaos only amplified Tammy's panic. Please, God, don't let him leave me, she whispered, rocking slightly in her wheelchair. Chris hovered by the doorway, silent, watching Tammy. Normally, he'd make a joke, distract her. But this wasn't a moment for laughter. Even his usually carefree energy was drowned in the seriousness of the room. Minutes stretched into hours. Every beep of the monitor, every twitch of Caleb's fingers became a conversation, a hope, a sign. Tammy refused to let go of his hand. She talked to him, pleaded, begged, even argued with him. You're not leaving. You hear me, Caleb? You promised we'd face everything together. Amy quietly stepped back, giving Tammy room, but stayed close enough to catch every tremble, every sob. Finally, the doctor approached. His face was calm, too calm. Mrs. Willingham, he said gently. He's stable for now. But he's critical. You need to rest, even just for a moment. Tammy shook her head vehemently. I'm not leaving him, the doctor sighed. I understand. But you need to stay strong, too. He'll need you at his side when he wakes. Tammy finally nodded, exhaustion settling into her bones. Amy wrapped an arm around her. Chris handed her a bottle of water. For the first time that night, she let herself lean back, tears still flowing, heart still racing, but with a fragile thread of hope. Hours passed. The room was quieter now, the machines still beeping steadily. Caleb's hand twitched slightly in Tammy's grip. She gasped. He's moving, she whispered. Amy, he's moving. A faint smile appeared on Caleb's lips. Tammy, he murmured weakly, his voice barely audible. She leaned closer, tears falling freely. I'm here. Don't you dare leave me, Caleb. You hear me? You're staying. Caleb's eyes fluttered open slowly, taking in her face. I'm sorry, he whispered, voice thin and trembling. I didn't mean to scare you. You nearly gave me a heart attack, you big idiot. Tammy shouted, half laughing, half crying. Do you know what you've done to me? Caleb's lips curved into a faint smile. I just wanted to see you one last time to tell you you're amazing. Tammy squeezed his hand, voice breaking. Shut up and stay here. I don't want last words. I want forever. You stay with me, Caleb. You hear me? He nodded, weak but responsive. And in that hospital room, the chaos and fear slowly began to fade. A quiet determination replaced it. The fight wasn't over, and Tammy was ready to fight with him, for him, every step of the way. Chris and Amy stayed near, providing silent support. They knew that Caleb's road to recovery would be long, but Tammy's love and presence were exactly what he needed. In that moment, Tammy realized something powerful. Strength wasn't just about physical health. It wasn't about weight or challenges or even heartbreak. It was about showing up. Over and over. No matter the fear. No matter the pain. And she would show up. Every single day. Even if the world was falling apart around her. The sun had barely risen over Dixon, Kentucky, but Tammy had already been awake for hours. She sat beside Caleb's hospital bed, watching him breathe with a shallow rhythm. Every inhale a fragile thread holding him to life. Amy hovered nearby, keeping a careful distance, sensing that Tammy needed this space to connect with Caleb on her own terms. Chris paced the room, restless, muttering under his breath, checking his phone every few minutes for updates. Tammy gripped Caleb's hand like it was her lifeline. "I won't leave you. Not now, not ever," she whispered, brushing the damp hair from his forehead. His eyes fluttered open slightly, barely focusing on her. I can't breathe right," he murmured. Tammy's heart stopped. Panic rose like a tidal wave, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Don't fight me, Caleb. You need to relax, okay? Let me help you," she urged softly. The nurses entered, adjusting monitors, administering oxygen, and preparing medications. Tammy's knuckles whitened as she held his hand, refusing to let him feel alone. Hours blurred together. The beeping of machines became the rhythm of their shared battle, each sound a reminder of how fragile life could be, yet how fiercely love could fight. Amy finally stepped closer, whispering, "Tam, remember your strength. You've been through so much already. You can do this." Tammy nodded, swallowing hard. Her mind raced back to all the moments she had faced fear, shame, and doubt. Times when people said she couldn't, times when her own body felt like a prison. But now none of that mattered. All that mattered was Caleb, and she refused to let him slip away. The doctor approached, his expression grave. "Tammy, his condition is critical. We need to consider more aggressive intervention. It's risky." Tammy's chest tightened.
Do it.
"Whatever it takes."
He stays with me.
Her voice was firm, unwavering. Chris and Amy exchanged a glance, silently supporting her choice. As the medical team prepared for the procedure, Tammy leaned over Caleb, speaking to him gently. "Hey, you hear me? You're going to fight. I'm right here. I won't leave. Not for a second." Caleb's weak hand squeezed hers, a faint but definite sign of life. "I trust you," he whispered. The procedure was tense. Tammy remained at his side, whispering words of love, encouragement, and hope, even as monitors beeped erratically. Chris stood behind her, silently holding her shoulder, Amy near the doorway, giving the sisters unity in silence. Hours passed, and finally, the doctor emerged. "He's stable for now. Tammy, your presence made a difference. He's not out of danger, but he's fighting, and you gave him strength he wouldn't have had alone." Tammy's body trembled. Relief crashed over her in waves, bringing tears to her eyes. I just can't believe it," she whispered. "He's still here." Caleb stirred, his hand brushing her cheek. "You didn't leave," he murmured. "I promised," Tammy said softly, pressing her forehead to his. "And I always will. Through everything, I'll always be here. You're my life, Caleb. My heart. My family." Amy stepped closer, hugging Tammy gently. "You never fail to amaze me," she whispered. "Your love, it's unstoppable." Chris added with a small smile, "Yeah, you might be the strongest person I know. And that's saying a lot, considering everything in this house." Tammy allowed herself a small, tired laugh, tears streaming down her face. Even in the darkness, even in the fear, love had carved a path. Caleb was still fighting, and so was she. Later that night, Tammy sat beside him, holding his hand, watching him sleep. She knew the road ahead would be long, full of challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But for the first time, she felt truly unbreakable. No matter what came next, Tammy was ready. Ready to fight. Ready to love. Ready to claim their life back together. The morning sun filtered gently through the hospital blinds, painting golden streaks across Caleb's room. Tammy sat beside him, sipping lukewarm coffee, the steam rising like a promise of hope. Caleb stirred, slowly opening his eyes, and managed a weak smile. "You're here again," he rasped, trying to sound lighthearted. Tammy chuckled softly. "Where else would I be? You survived the night. That's all thanks to me." Caleb's hand found hers, squeezing gently. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Tammy smiled, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "Well, lucky for you, you'll never find out. You're stuck with me." Meanwhile, back at the Slayton household, chaos was brewing. Chris had decided it was the perfect morning for an indoor adventure. Tammy's wheelchair was now the centerpiece of a living room obstacle course, complete with cones, pillows, and a strategically placed yoga mat. Amy watched, shaking her head with amusement. "Chris, what are you doing?" she asked, as he balanced on a rolling chair with a makeshift cape around his shoulders. "I'm testing my reflexes," Chris replied with mock seriousness. "If I can dodge flying pillows and evade the gravy monster, I can survive anything." Tammy, still recovering emotionally from the hospital scare, couldn't help but laugh, the sound echoing like music through the room. "You're ridiculous," she said, tears of relief mixing with laughter. "Why do I put up with this?" Amy smirked. "Because secretly you love it. Admit it." Chris dramatically collapsed onto the couch, pretending to faint.
Fine y surrender.
But this was a victory for agility and bravery, he declared. The sisters shared a glance, silently acknowledging that these moments, chaotic, messy, and unpredictable, were what made their family strong. Through laughter and love, through crisis and recovery, they kept each other grounded. Later that day, Tammy returned home with Caleb, now stable but still weak. The house welcomed them with open arms. Glenn ran to hug Tammy, while Gage showed off his superhero cape, insisting Caleb was the official villain for the day. Dinner was loud, filled with the familiar sounds of clattering plates, shouted instructions, and bursts of laughter. Amy made sure Caleb had a seat of honor beside Tammy, stacking his plate with mashed potatoes, roasted chicken, and corn. Chris, never missing a beat, attempted to sneak a bite of Caleb's dessert but was thwarted by Tammy's watchful eye. "You touch that, you owe me 20 push-ups," she warned playfully. The evening ended with Tammy reading Caleb a story before bed, her voice soft and steady, a soothing contrast to the day's chaotic energy. "Remember," she whispered as he drifted off, "no matter what happens, we're in this together. Always." The next morning, Amy suggested a family outing to the park, a small celebration for Caleb's recovery. Tammy hesitated at first, worried about his energy, but Caleb insisted, smiling weakly yet determined. They strolled slowly through the park, Gage and Glenn running ahead, Chris attempting to race Tammy's wheelchair, and Amy capturing every chaotic, joyful moment on her phone. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in pinks and oranges, Tammy felt a sense of calm she hadn't known in months. Through the laughter, the scares, the messy dinners, and the hospital crises, her family's love remained unshakable. Tammy squeezed Caleb's hand, leaning her head on his shoulder. "See," she whispered, "we survived. Together." Caleb nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "And we'll keep surviving. No matter what." The sisters exchanged glances across the park, silent, knowing smiles. They had weathered storms before, both literal and figurative. And as long as they had each other, there was no challenge too great, no heartache too deep, and no laughter too loud for them to handle. The Slayton family chaos wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. And for Tammy, Caleb, Amy, and the rest of the family, that was everything. The sun rose slowly over Dixon, Kentucky, casting warm golden rays across the Slayton household. Birds chirped as if announcing a new chapter, one filled with hope and possibility. Tammy sat at the kitchen table, sipping tea, watching Gage and Glenn giggle as they attempted to build a tower of blocks taller than themselves. Amy was nearby, organizing school projects and quietly observing her sisters. The house smelled like cinnamon rolls and fresh coffee, a small but comforting normalcy. Caleb rolled in beside Tammy, a small smile playing on his lips. "Morning, beautiful," he said softly. Tammy leaned back, stretching her arms and exhaling a contented sigh. Morning, husband. Sleep well? Better than I have in a long time, Caleb admitted, glancing around at the lively household. Being home with you, it feels right. The family had agreed to a day without cameras, no filming, no obligations, just them, their laughter, and their stories. Chris, of course, could not resist adding a comedic element. He had strapped on a ridiculous headband with blinking lights, claiming he was the official happiness officer. "Do I get points for morale boosting?" he asked, waving his arms dramatically. Tammy laughed, shaking her head. "You're impossible. But yes, points for ridiculousness." Later, Amy gathered everyone in the living room for a family reflection. "Look how far we've come," she said softly, gesturing to everyone. "Through heartbreak, challenges, and chaos, we're still here. Together. Stronger than ever." Tammy reached for Caleb's hand, squeezing it tightly. "We've been through so much," she whispered. "And we're still moving forward. No secrets, no lies. Just love, laughter, and each other." Caleb nodded, tears brimming in his eyes. "You fought for us, Tammy. You never gave up. That's why we're here, happy, together, and stronger than before." Outside, the kids ran in circles, their laughter carrying across the yard. Chris attempted to join in, tripping over a garden hose and landing in a pile of leaves, eliciting peals of laughter from everyone. Even Tammy couldn't resist chuckling at his antics. As the evening approached, Tammy and Caleb shared a quiet moment on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of pink, orange, and lavender. Tammy leaned her head on Caleb's shoulder, whispering, "I never want to forget this moment. Just us, no chaos, no cameras, no interruptions. Just love." Caleb kissed her forehead gently. "Neither do I. This is our life. Messy, loud, imperfect, but ours." The night ended with the family gathered around the dinner table, sharing stories, jokes, and dreams for the future. Amy raised her glass of sparkling water. "To family," she said, smiling around the room.
Physical.
"To love," Tammy added, her voice strong yet tender. "To laughter," Chris chimed in, balancing his headband that had somehow survived the day. And in that warm, chaotic, imperfect house, the Slayton family found their true victory: unity, resilience, and the unshakable knowledge that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Tammy, Caleb, Amy, Chris, Gage, and Glenn, each one with their quirks, their struggles, and their hearts wide open, knew this simple truth: love conquers fear, laughter heals wounds, and family is the strongest bond of all. As the stars appeared overhead, Tammy whispered one final promise to herself: "No matter what happens tomorrow, I'll keep moving forward. Stronger, braver, and surrounded by love. Always." And with that, the Slayton family, messy, chaotic, hilarious, and endlessly devoted, ended their day knowing that together they could overcome anything.